On the 23rd, we have rain, which is going to have a number of effects. Some movement effects. All the roads become more expensive to move on. Nothing else does. I think it's a reasonable abstraction there, because the roads all get muddy, etc. They become horrible to move on. The pikes are the only thing they retain their movement value, and we don't have a lot of pikes here. The railways keep their, they keep the same penalty as the roads do. I think so. I think that makes sense, because you're not going to be marching along the ties. I don't think that would be the only way to, like a plank road would, assuming, these railways have ties, actually. They have something. By this point, yeah, they should have wooden ties. Okay. But it doesn't affect movement across non-road terrain, which is to say wet grass probably does actually slow movement down a little bit. So I don't know, but the effect on the deterioration of the roads is certainly the greatest effect that you're going to see in the reality. And in the woods, it probably doesn't affect much at all unless there's a lot of rain enough to muddy everything. Of course, if it's a heavy rain, it might reduce visibility and make it more difficult. So, there's a lot going on there to think about how effective, what the effect of the rain might actually be and whether it's capturing it all. And then the streams, the rivers, all that becomes harder to cope with. So like fords no longer are crossable, I think. And creeks become uncrossable unless there's a road, pike, or railway. And that's a pretty major effect. There aren't a lot of bridges in the game. So, like this is not a bridge, that's a ford. Bridges are very clearly specified. And so the Confederates are kind of caught across the river now. Jackson, Anderson, and they're not going to be able to move. Well, Jackson's over here, so he could actually, I don't know what, go to Culpeper. That's about as far as he's going to be able to go. And combat is also the attackers penalized in the rain, which is cool. This definitely throws a monkey wrench into certain things. There's a bridge here. I don't think you can blow bridges in this game. There's just the one bridge you can dismantle for the Union. Brits are also in somewhat of a tricky position, which is to say, my supply beyond Culpeper is not good. This Fauquier, I may need to pull back and give up a lot of this ground that I've gained. I probably want to try to hold a bridgehead there. On the other hand, the effects of being out of supply aren't that terrible. I've got a pretty good forage value out here. Actually, wow, it's even better up in Loudon, Clark, Frederick. Interesting. How can you end up out of supply in Culpeper? See, there's a Confederate. Oh, you need the forage value because you might be out of supply and pulling back there. So Loudon should be near this. Fauquier goes way up here. Ugh. Yeah. And Loudon. It's really hard to read these. This is still Clark. There's Loudon. Okay, this is Loudon here. I don't think I'm going to be able to get that far, so I'm not sure whether or not I should be trying to preserve supply. It puts me if it's more than a turn out of your way, and you have a fair chance of recovering the supply, why not? What's the Union supply situation? Well, the Union supply situation is based on depots and this railway. There are no depots along that railway. And that seems to leave some holes as well. I don't know, this railway may work as well. If all the rails work, then the Union's fine. He moves his corps forward and chases Buford's cav out of the way. That opens up a path, well, sort of, except towards Culpeper. This cav could end up falling back again if attacked, thrown into a threatening position again. They gave up. It was 2-to-1 odds, but with Jackson involved, he gives a bunch of bonuses with forces from the side. It just didn't look like a viable place to try to make a stand anymore. So we got out of there. I was mistaken. This didn't affect me, but the cost to enter all types of major terrain without roads, pikes, or railroad is increased by 1. That resolves my problem. It shouldn't be double, but it should be more. The one thing that I'm having difficulty with is creeks that are crossed by railroads or roads. I think you just pay the road movement cost to go across them. That's what you would normally pay with the major and minor rivers, except now fords are just impassable. So I guess that applies still, but it feels like it's not quite spelled out enough. But I think that's what the intention is. It's the only way I can justify the way the rules are written. I'm having a really tough time trying to figure. I just got a Confederate activation. Trying to figure out what I can do. I can't cut the river now because the bridge Stevens is enough to keep Hood from going forward. I won't have enough of Longstreet to punch him out of the way. And I'm really not sure that I can gain ground anywhere else. So then the question becomes, well, next turn, do I want to leave the county and get over into Culpeper, where, I'd be able to survive? Well, if I pull back with most of these forces, what do I do with Hood? What do I do with Kemper? Should they be exposed out there? That looks horrible. But on the other hand, do I want a whole fucking corps out of supply? Supply losses aren't that bad. I've got pretty good forage there, pretty good forage everywhere. So how terrible is it to be out of supply? I don't know. I feel like I can't give up ground. I've got to be in this position where, where I'm threatening those railways. But this rain really hurt the Confederates' plan a great deal. And we get another early turn end. Both players kind of not really willing to commit to a lot of movement. Which may be why it happened, Anyway. Jackson and some of Longstreet's troops are down here in Culpeper. We're going to grab Culpeper itself, burn stations that the Union doesn't have supply down that far. That's one of our goals. Over here, I decided to use Longstreet mainly, in pushing forward, and but we didn't go all out on it because, well, I guess we kind of didn't want to commit all of our forces at once until this sort of mass starts doing something. But none of that happened, and I don't know how it's going to turn out. The Union didn't get to shift forces as far as they'd like to, but their movement's a little slower, so they've got things covered up right now. We're going to have a decent amount of entrenching going on, I guess. Assuming that's allowed in the rain, I better look that up. Problem with entrenching. So this is the situation we see right now. Not too different. The Union converging or spreading out to defend their rail line as much as they kind of can. There are things like this mill station or mile station. I don't think that's worth anything though. that, you know, conceivably the Union could slip, or the Confederates could slip through and do something about. There's no station here. This guy's just protecting the roadways, trying to delay any Confederate movement north. And we got Union troops starting to come in. I guess Third Corps Command is going to get switched there. I'm going to have to look that up, but we're going to lose McDowell, I guess, and get somebody who's equally a little better at command. But and I think it shifts over to the Army of the Potomac under that. I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up. But everything pretty much recovered. Digging, and you can't build any bridges. You know, I would love to build bridges here or something, but no, I can't build bridges during rain. But you can dig in. So, locations where people didn't move. It's raining. We don't want to go outside. We don't want to walk. All right, guys. Well, you're gonna dig. Okay, so here, August 24th, I've got some troops coming in. The random event was increased Union reinforcements, or accelerated Union reinforcements. So the August 25th ones are available. That's Hooker and this Platt guy. I got choices here, though. These come in down here at Aquia Creek Station. That rail line doesn't really help me at all. It goes the wrong way. I can delay it a turn and bring it in up here at 6 Mile Post. And I think next turn is when the railways become available. And this is the kind of stuff you get a 25th. That would be indeed next turn. And I'd be able to move basically half the force. Now that's the Third Corps, but that's the Army of the Potomac's Third Corps. So, for whatever, to be differentiated from the Army of Virginia's Third Corps. I got to be careful because the coloring is not easy for my eyes to see. Fifth Corps is the only other Army of the Potomac stuff that's on the board yet. That's the stuff oozing in this way. I could bring more of it in that direction. I feel like it's hard to tell which is better, because I lost. You know, the Confederates have cut me here, but is the threat from the flank more impressive or less than bringing more forces down here? I would kind of like to bring forces down there quickly. I really don't know. It looks to me like I've got trouble getting stuff to here, and that's going to be harder to do. So I think I'm going to delay these guys until the 25th and bring them in by rail instead. I got to go look up McClellan. Where is he? It's over there. I don't know when the hell he comes in. He doesn't come in through normal rules. He comes in through something, maybe panic. Yeah, Pope comes out of the game. McClellan shows up in his place, and he commands both armies. And things get a little better. But there's a huge victory point bonus for the Confederates for causing a panic. So far we haven't had any real battles. There's also the dreaded turn 6. So I'm working on my leader transfer right now, but I do have to worry about supply lines, and we're going to have some units that are out of supply up here in Facketer. I thought I had a turn to get down. I thought it was end of turn actions there. Supply effects phase. Wow. We're going to have to look this up. I thought it only took place in one part of the turn. During supply status, you flip them over. Okay, so at the end of the turn, if I haven't gotten resupplied by foraging, which is the only way I think I can become resupplied. So I made my decision to press forward. All these things are going to be out of supply, and now they're going to have to forage. In order to forage, I think they need to have, they have to keep their fatigue level at 2 or less, and the lower it is, the better it is. Now, dispersal I was going to use, which is an extra penalty in addition to the fatigue level towards supply. So I kind of got caught with my pants down. This is with both sides, just because I thought supply was just assessed at the end of the turn instead of at the beginning. All right, so let's take a look at where we've got supply. Well, the Confederates are okay back here, but not across the line here. So all of these are going to be out of supply. The Union, they've got this rail line running, so I think they've got supply in all those counties. Stafford County's okay. I think the Union's fine in supply. We've got this, which I don't know if it counts or not. I don't think it does. So I think down here, actually Stafford County is, yeah, it's okay. That's the line. I saw this red line here, and it looks too much like the red dashed for me. So I think all the Union units are in supply, and most of the Confederate Army is not. In particular, most of Longstreet. Short the last few turns have been, Lee's very hesitant to pass at all, even though he knows that the Union needs to do more than he does. I've moved all my Confederates, though, that I really wanted to move. I've got, who is this? Wilcox heading for Culpeper. And that kind of sucks, because that's part of my force that's just cut off doing diddly shit. That I can probably score at some other point, but I don't know, because it's hard to gain ground on this in terms of just traveling distance is expensive and difficult. Certainly, the guys who are here, I should have moved into Culpeper County. They'd be able to move now. Instead, they're just going to be sitting there, foraging. And here I think I may have two guys. I know I've got a lot of counters. No, I just got Telefiero there. Okay, a lot of leaders. So I'll be able to, roll on the natural 4 or whatever to try to recover supply. Otherwise, things start to look difficult. And the rest of this force, this is a huge stack with some out of supply units, but I think there's only 2 out of supply units in it. So it doesn't really pay to move out. The penalty is only for foraging units. So I think I'm going to sit here as it stands. There's some desire to get Hood across the Cedar Run, but until I see the Union moving and covering my exits, I'm not sure I really have to do anything. I may have to move him and take the penalty, though, and that's probably into Prince William. It's no better, no worse. Things actually get better if I get further north, because the area is less ravaged, I guess. Union's beginning to move forces from the 1st Corps, and the 9th Corps is actually crossing the river now. This means Hood's got to make his decision. Does he want to push across or not? If he doesn't, the Union is got a fair chance of being able to cover most of my paths across, but I could always swing down here through the woods. The problem is Union 5th Corps is busting its way through there. I think I'm going to hold. I think I'm going to let the Union continue to play out their turn. They were in kind of a rush to get to this position. I don't know what it means. Huge force here. I got to look at that and see if I can spare some of them out of there, especially with that big multiplier for the problem is if I move some units out of the way to clear up the roads or whatever, then other units are there's a gap that's open for a little while. On the other hand, if I don't try to move as effectively and efficiently as possible, is what I I can cover the ground a little better. And it leads you with these kind of neat decisions. If you've got a clear straightaway, hey, you can pretty much do your marching however you like. But without that, with the danger of enemy forces possibly able to do something, sure, they're low on supplies, but they could do something. The world is a little different. Let me make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, this is turn 6. And that means 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This big Sumner pile is when I have to check supplies again. And I'm probably going to be deep into Union territory. Well, deep into Union occupied Virginia by that point. Maybe paying off. The Union's weakening their forces here, and it looks like they're not going to have enough to cover the Cedar Run area very well. Now, I can push them, I can do extended marches, I can do forced marches. Forced marches are dangerous because they automatically disorganize you. So those don't tend to be as good a move unless you're in a really dangerous zone. And I don't really know if there's anything dangerous in this game. It's like, he might hit me. Yeah, that probably won't hurt much. I think we came to the end of the movement there, and it played all out. The Union did actually push a unit. I forgot to roll a die for it. That's a 1. That's definitely okay. So he didn't disorganize. He would have disorganized if he forced marched. He only needed 1 movement point, so at the end. Confederates mainly recovering in most places. We got their cav back here, who, really don't have a lot of screening tasks available, but you can see pushed up here a little bit with, I don't know, whoever the loose guy was. It's this guy here, Griffin. He can actually be absorbed, even though he's a fair amount of strength points. Not the safest place in the world to be next to Hood, but if Hood attacks, he ends up fatiguing, and that hurts his supply situation and all kind of other problems. So he's kind of has to delay. I actually wanted to get him to swerve into here 3, 4, 5, 6, preferably. I think that's actually 7, entering an enemy zone of control. No, it just stops him. Exiting costs him. But I figure getting 1 unit close, that'll have me set up so that I can try to do a lot of damage to Hood if I can figure out a way. You get a +4 for completely surrounding someone, and we're not far from that. This unit marches in and attacks, we get a complete surrounded. So that's very appealing. That's enough. And then when units retreat through zones, they take damage as well. Although that doesn't count against the victory conditions for some reason. Those are just deserters or something. The unit losing. Oh, I got another unit I can move. Okay, so we'll get that guy moved. And then I got to worry about the particulars of the foraging and how that fits into the sequence of play. It's right next to the recovery phase. The recovery phase, I think I kind of have to do them together, because if I entrench during the recovery phase, I can't make a forage roll. So they kind of should be a mixed together thing in the same phase. And we had a couple of problems. Hood failed his supply check, so he's disorganized now, which puts him even more vulnerable. And then back here, Longstreet and Lee, Talafiero, big unit, didn't get, that's definitely something that should have moved over here. It did not get its supplies. Nope, forgot to drop this guy down to 1. So it looks like we've actually foiled Hood's plan, and maybe worse than that. He may have been caught off guard. He may lose some limbs or something off this. He's looking in dangerous shape, and I don't know. Plus, we got all those reinforcements now from the Army of the Potomac heading down the choo-choo line. And that makes me very happy as a Union player. It should be quicker than this. It's just, if it was this line, it might have made sense to push forward, but I didn't particularly want to try coming in this flank and see where it's coming. We might be able to shove the Confederates back some distance, given the situation they've gotten in. I'm seeing what looks like it might be a real battle developing. Certainly up here, there's going to be one. Hood's going to get schwacked. But otherwise, the Confederates look like they've gotten themselves all kinds of out of position, where the Union seems to have maintained something that looks like, a reasonable disposition. Oh, just as the Union's looking like it's, tying a net around the Confederate troops here in August 25th. The random events table comes up with another command paralysis. Now, don't think that these are even. So, for example, the Union command paralysis is on an 8, whereas the Confederate one's on a 12, representing the leadership differences. So, it's not like it's a generic system, including the same random events table and everything. It really isn't. It just gives these events where they, where they better represent the situation. And remember, we got those extra troops coming in up here on the choo-choo, and, well, we'll see whether the rebels can kind of escape this net and get their forces back in supply. I think it was a really bad idea to have so much of my army out of supply. It's just asking for it. Confederates got the movement advantage. Jackson storms up. He's going to try to crush Griffin. I've got like plus 12 on him. See what this does. It's a bigger force hitting a smaller force. That's dangerous. Plus 12, minus 2, plus 10. Greater than or equal to plus 10. What is the smaller force? The smaller force here is Griffin. It's a 4. He's wiped out. And on the other hand, we just get an advance. We'd used up all of our movement points. Do we want the advance is the question, and I don't know what the answer is to that, to tell you the truth. I'm not going to be in range of any of Jackson's other units oh, I have an extra movement point. Forget about it, right? I don't know. I think I added them both. So, yeah, I might as well advance. Help protect Hood a little bit there. It's gotten a lot of activations in a row, running through Culpeper, shifting up, defending against 5th Corps coming through here. And Hill marched up and forced across this Cedar River or whatever, Cedar Run. And has now, extended the threat to the rail stations that are more important. And remember, turn 11 or whatever, the Union could be in a lot of trouble if one of those stations is destroyed, because that's what my supplies are based on as the Union. Interesting options available. So for example, if he could get enough movement to get to here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, not quite, on even a best roll, he could actually move there and destroy that station and really wreak some havoc, and also throw a threat into the depot. As it stands, though, he's holding the crossing. Yeah, there's more over here, but it gets harder and harder the further across you start sliding. So I have to make sure Prince William County doesn't open anything up. I don't think it does in terms of those guys being freed up. Although turn 8 opens up some guys, so I gotta look for them. And that may be a problem, because Some of these guys might be guys who need to use the rail, and I've already used my railing movement for this activation phase. So this guy is not going to be railing anywhere. Now, he could maybe find another rail station he can pick up from, but he might not be able to move there easily with the movement costs this turn, so he's really a late choice for me. For the Union, they kind of do need to cover this, but do they really need to pull back? If they do, they're giving up stuff over in this Fauquier County. I have no idea how to pronounce these things. Union only got one move down to here, and the turn ended on a double ones turn-in situation. Again, lots of entrenching could happen, I guess. Kind of funny. This guy. I forgot to remove him last time. He did not move this time. But yeah, you know, did the Confederates do everything they wanted to? Not quite, but pretty damn close. I don't know how much more. I might have moved this if I could. These guys might have pushed a little harder up to try to, you know, start threatening that rail line. But the Union's in a lot of trouble. And none of this had to do with that command paralysis. That didn't affect anything. It was just the pattern, the sequence of activations. All Confederate wins, and then the double ones coming up. The one action the Union took didn't require anything. Some of these units come in next turn, become available for use. I don't know if I don't think they're restricted at all. But, you know, now the vagaries of chance have made it so that there's another opening for the Confederates and another chance to slip beyond the Union lines. As the 26th rolls into place, Union command paralysis again. And, you know, that's definitely going to help the Confederates a lot as they start to be able to maybe hit some of these railway centers. The Union may have to, if it gets a chance, rail to defend this, which also kind of defends that bridge a little bit. We do still have a division up there. Confederates also got a reinforcement. They can basically bring it in from here this turn and further over to the east on later turns. They can't. I thought maybe they could jump it way forward, but no, it's not going to go. It's to their advantage to bring it in this turn, assuming that they get to move it. Even if they don't, this is not terribly bad. It's more of Longstreet to join Wilcox here, I guess. They can't use the rail though, so it sucks to be them. Part of entrenchments, you know, some people may put them on the bottom of their stack or whatever instead of on the top so they can see the unit commands. That causes as many problems as it solves. With this horde of entrenchments and fortifications, I have no idea where my commanders are, which, you know, this is the time where I have to look over all my corps, try to figure out where the corps actually are. I don't know that either. And move my commander within that corps so that I can sort of best utilize them. Chances are most of them are in the right place, but not taking this step is kind of an annoying, it puts you into a position where you're not able to get that extra little bit of movement, which especially for the Union right now with a 2-point penalty is a big deal. Movement's mainly the Confederates, Jackson pushing deeper and deeper up into Prince William County here, I guess. Right? County lines are hard for me to see. We have Henselman moved down to this Briscoe station, but now Manassas Junction is threatened. Bull Run. And there's a serious, you know, risk. There's a reason the Confederates fought here. There's a depot there. which would be very valuable, and a lot of victory points for destroying rail lines. We haven't really been able to get any rail lines yet, though, because the Confederates have stretched, and denied us even the lower valued ones. That may end up being a big mistake because the Union has stretched, because now they just don't have the troops to defend Manassas. Third Corps shoots back up with a series of, very lucky really, a series of activations that they got. Henselman able to extend his march, make it to Manassas Junction, make the job a little hard on the Confederates. They're going to have to attack somewhere. And I don't think it's going to be up at the very edge of their capabilities. I think what we're going to see is kind of a sweeping down. This poor 5th Corps Platt here is pretty exposed. He's a small unit. Of course, this side of the river is defended, so we kind of would have to rush Stevens out of the way to get a good hit on him. And I don't think that's going to happen this turn, because the rebels are, they made a big effort to threaten this, and now it didn't come. Looks like I got a lot more rebel reinforcements coming. No Union until the next supply turn. Uh-oh. Shame, lack of mnemonic devices. These rain counters on the other side, they say rain. What we don't have is like the command paralysis. You don't have something to mark it out for this turn. Yeah, you need rain for the turns in advance. That's one of the reasons you need those counters. There's no reason they couldn't have been double printed with something useful on the other side. I think that's probably about it in terms of totally useless counters, although I have these extra leaders. I don't know what they're for. Looks like a McDowell after. Maybe you're supposed to replace them? No, that's kind of blue. Yeah, Porter. They all appear better. And I don't know if they were an errata. Maybe there's something, maybe they're counters for this Jeb Stuart's War. I don't know. They're obviously a different color slightly from the leaders in the normal set. So, and the leaders in the normal, in what I assume are the normal set, are the same color as the units, etc. So my feeling is that little set is something that got added. Now it's either errata counters or it's after McClellan gets full command of the Army of the Potomac, except those units aren't all Army of the Potomac. I don't know what they are. I wish I had something to explain them. The thing I'm seeing, and again, this is because there's nothing to remind me on the map of where these are, but the picture that I had in my head of which railway stations were important is not the actual ones that are. And I can show you what's going on here. Although this is a pain in the butt. Okay, so the 4 most important are Bull Run's Bridge up here, Sangster's Station, which is 4721 up here, and I think going west, Berks and Springfield. Kind of a random selection. It's not, it's not all the stations in a row. It's not necessarily ones that look particularly important. Obviously, the Bull Run Bridge looks somewhat important. And Sangster's is on a creek. Why? Why rather than Fairfax? I don't know. Springfield way back there, sure. The other set of 4 is Rappahannock Station way up here, which I'm protecting, great. And I assumed it was the rest of the line going back. Nah. Catler's Station, 3307, which is this one. That makes sense, it's behind a river, but I'm defending all this territory I don't really need to. Now, I kind of do, because that's my rail line, right? But I wouldn't have put all the effort in. Manassas Junction, way up here, and then finally Bristow Station, which I don't even know where the fuck that is. There's Bristow. Where'd Manassas Junction go? Manassas Junction's up here, Bristow's down there, so they kind of jump around. You can see why it's just not easy. And some little, the Lee versus Grant map, nowhere near as pretty, but it expressed what was valuable on it to some extent. It was easier to see what you wanted and what you didn't. This, not so much, And the same with a lot of things. All the rules on, what Union units are available. Okay, so turn 8, I thought I had some Union units available. Yeah, it's this one, and then these guys can go out to like hex 49, hex row 49, which is out here, but no further, which makes them, useful if there's a big penetration, but historically they wouldn't have gotten into range. But just the way it's scattered, this list here, then this little chart here for the 5th Corps units, then more listed here, and they're kind of geographically placed, I guess, but they're not really organized by turn or anything like that, and it's just so much that's missing. And of course, the player aid, the charts, is very crowded already, so it's not like there's a lot of room to stick things in there. I guess they could back print it on something like the county display, which, unlike these, doesn't have to be face up all the time. Printing these suckers, I've had some big stacks. They've been on the board. I don't feel like the force pool display. I'm not a big fan of those. It certainly doesn't have to have as big as spaces on it to distribute the units. Much smaller spaces could have held them. So, I don't know. And the Confederates continued to deal unpleasantness to the Union here, driving Stevens back. This was not a big enough unit again to cause the panic. But we caused a couple casualties, and kind of establishing ourselves here. We're not really in position yet to launch a big attack. Hooker's got a lot of troops here. Platt, not so many. Wow, that's kind of tasty. That might be worth a forced march for. But the Union definitely needs to cover it. The Confederates have been winning a lot of initiatives. They're kind of hoping turn will end before the Union gets to reposition any of their troops. However, we might just try to overrun this piece of crap so we can burn that station, because that would help a lot. So the Confederates have largely played out their hand in terms of pieces to move. They could over-fatigue units. They got a couple of cav here, here that are loose. I still got good old Hood here. He could move. Feels like he's kind of holding an important location there and is about ready to turn it into a fort. But I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to be in good supply. I think it's hard to tell, but I don't think I'm going to be back in supply by the time that marker gets there. So we're going to have problems, and that may be a time when the Union can get its act together and hit us. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. But anyway, now I keep rolling the dice, hoping for double ones and hoping to limit the Union further. Not that they're going to do much. They're having trouble getting much done because they still got the command paralysis in play. The turn hits an auto end, double ones with the 2 following. After the Union's gotten to move most of the things they wanted to move. I got these entrenchments here. Some of these are real important. Rappahannock Station, that's worth points. This one's not, but it's important. to get supplies back here. I left Elkwood for some reason. That was probably a mistake, but I don't think I can hold that. Not sure I can hold this either, although I got a fair-sized force there against a couple of Confederate divisions that are coming up. The Confederates actually burned this. Just prevent the Union, they destroyed it. Prevent the Union from being able to get deep into Culpeper on turn 11. You know, anytime after that, they're fine. But, you know, I had the Union moving these guys up in Warren and stuff like that. These guys didn't move. They were supposed to. So that was kind of an error. Anyway, we'll further entrench and pull counters off, and we're moving into, the 27th. Much to my dismay, the Corps are just getting all scrambled up and not where you need them. Just because, hey, I need somebody to hold this. So, look, part of the 2nd Corps is going to stand back there. Well, the rest of the 2nd Corps is heading this way to go do something. And I got that kind of situation here. There's part of the 1st Corps. Not a really big hunk, but again, a couple of counters. You know, moderate-sized division between them, but just holding an important location that I don't want to give up. But the rest of the 1st Corps, I think, is up here. 3rd Corps, you know, scattered about up here. What do I got here? That's part of, that's part of the other 3rd Corps, which is kind of centralized here. The Army of the Pacific, excellent. Army of the Potomac's 3rd Corps is there. 5th Corps, largely here. There's one unit, but that came in back there at the 6 Mile post or whatever. It should have come in here. I delayed it a turn, and you know, it would have made more sense in the other location. But whatever. I don't know where we're going to go from here. We got the FT counter. That guy was not at 4. It doesn't really feel like. It looks like the Confederates are, you know, running ragged around the Union and causing them all kind of problems. But they haven't scored anything yet. They haven't destroyed a railway. They haven't been able to really concentrate too hard. They've gotten some casualties on the Union. We got 7 hits here. And that's nowhere near what we need. We got Culpeper. May or may not hold it. You know, burning railway or destroying railway station doesn't really help you in this game because there's so few opportunities to check for supply, and I honestly don't know how terrible a thing it is to be out of supply. It caused me some scare over here. Confederates were able to get themselves together. It's easier for the Union to be in supply in the first place, so I think it's dinner time. So the Union event, or the event for the turn, was the Union delayed reinforcements, which I didn't think had any effect because I only saw Confederate reinforcements. But there was actually quite a pile of Union forces down under there. They're not coming in this turn. All it is Hampton's Cav here, which, I don't know. Cav can move pretty quickly, but it's also, you know, not very big and can't do a lot of the things you need to gain victory points. So the question is, you know, how valuable is it to run him up as far as you can go in order to try to use him as screening force and everything? And it becomes a pretty low priority, I think, unless I'm trying to pass off activities, you know, to the Union side. So I guess we're ready to go, and I have no idea what I'm doing again. You know, that's the problem. It's not just like, oh, I haven't played an operational, you know, kind of fluid movement game in a long time. It's just, it doesn't stick. I walk away, you know, even today, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And even when I'm sitting there playing, I'm not sure I know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm kind of bumbling the pieces around. I talked to one of the guys I game with, and he feels in a similar way about, he hasn't played this series, I don't think, but he's played the Zucker Napoleonics. And we had the same kind of impression of, you know, I feel like a complete dumbass playing these because I just don't know what I'm supposed to do. You know, it doesn't, and I don't know. You know, I mean, this guy impresses me. He usually picks up the idea of games pretty quickly and pretty easily, but somehow the idea of these operational games where there's big gaps and you have lots of room to maneuver around, it just kind of defies, you know, my usual expectations of what I'm going to be doing. I feel the same way about naval games too, where there's so much room, you know, where I'm like, okay, well, I can go here, but he can counter that, and I just don't understand. You know, it's not like, throw force at weak spot, you know. Thang understand that. Jackson's set up for a core attack on Hooker here. I hope I'm good enough. Hooker's got, what, 18 strength points. What do I have? 18, 22. Hey, I got 1 to 1 at least. 22, 32, 36, 39 to 18. So that gets me 2 to 1. That's +1. I got 3 more for Jackson against Hooker. So it looks pretty good right now. I think that gets me a +4. I don't have any surrounding units, which would be very helpful. And that was kind of the thing. I could have, 1, 2, I could have come around here instead, but then I wouldn't have the core attack. That would get me, I don't know how much more. If I'm adjacent, Jesus, I'm knocking counters down. I gotta think, because I might have been better off doing an attack just with Hooker and use less fatigue. So we were looking at like +4 instead, or just with Hill. Instead, I could have had 18 and 4 is 22. Sorry, this isn't, I lied. This is 22. So either way, I'm going to be 1 to 1. So I'm at +3, +4 for a core attack. Instead, I could be at, geez, +3 still for Jackson. And I gotta look up the kind of flank attack. This is the problem. So flank attacks, I always have to look up, because in this system they're more complicated. In Lee versus Grant, it's very easy how many units you got next to the enemy. Here, it's what hexes do you have covered and what do they mean? So, what am I looking at here? 5 to 6 hexes are enemy occupied or in the enemy zone of control of units. So that's not the case right now. Here it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I wouldn't get it anyway. But I might from here. 1, 2, 3. I could have done it from there. So I think I could get an additional +2. I think I'm better off doing this. Instead of a core attack, positioning myself like this. Now, I wouldn't have had enough movement to make an attack immediately. But now, instead of a core attack, I can launch one of these. So this is, what did I say, 1822, that's good enough. This is only 1417, so I'm gonna transfer Jackson. I'm gonna move that unit as a core movement action to get an extra movement point out of it. I get a lot of movement points, which means I can do a coordinated, a major attack or whatever. So I've got 6, 7, 8 movement points here. And really, it's only one unit, so I'll keep the core movement out of there. Even though I did an official core movement, I only did it with one unit. And now I'll attack coming down into here. And I think we're at 22 to 22, so that's 1 to 1. I get +3 for commander. 2 more for outflanking, that gets me 5. I could do a prepared attack. That'll cost me 4 of my movement points. A normal attack will only cost me 2. I'll do the prepared. The reason being, I probably want to be in that hex afterwards so that I can destroy the railway station. The other side of course, though, is I could do a core movement, slide up, and get into position here, but I'll be too fatigued. Well, no. I could move up now and do a move into there and position for destroy. Let me think. What am I at? I can't remember. I'm at +5. Do I need +6? +6 could get me a panic. Ooh. And I'm at a good point for that to be happening. Let's just go with the +5. So I get 2 of my movement points back, right? So I go into here, 1, 2, 3. Nah, we'll go to the +6. We have enough movement to keep going anyway, assuming we don't get stopped. And we hope for a good roll, because good things can happen. We get a +8 total, which we're going to be fine. And they were at 22. They're going to take a 4, disordered, routed, and a panic result. And the Union is collecting up quite a few casualties. That's like, I don't remember if it's 1 per 2 or 1 per 1. Let's take a look. Just to see how much we're gathering off that, because those are important victory points that we can get here. We got to remember to try to get into places. Yeah, so those are 1 each, so that's 11 victory points. Now, 11 victory points is butt kiss in terms of if that's all we get. But what happened is we lost the initiative roll, which means I can't just drop Jackson in there. And what it means is someone like King can run up there. Now, is this an important location even? Briscoe Station? I don't remember. I think it is. I'll feel pretty stupid if it's not, because I'm attacking something useless again. Okay, yes, it's one of the lesser valued ones. The guys back here that are important. I don't know. Oh. I think Manassas Junction is important. I don't remember. Do we look that up? Yep. We'll look that up too. Unfortunately, Manassas Junction is in that same set, so we're not going to gain much from that, but we kind of need to bust our way through. So maybe we're not doing that badly there. But the Union can try to react to get in the way there. With only a 1 in 6 chance, they still made it. Who knows, you know, they might have gotten another activation and been able to pull in anyway. But, yep, nothing's getting burned now. And, you know, driving the Confederates out of there would have been a tougher job. Leaving this, I don't know. You know, and now I got to worry because there's more troops coming. They're coming from up here. Just not getting the traction that I need to destroy the rails I need. And here's the thing, in the historical situation, the Confederates had all this. They could wreck those rails, you know. I don't know to what degree in the game's terms they counted as having done so. But with the with the Union defending all of those, they're making it much, much harder on the Confederates to get any victory points off of them. And if all they get is, that 11-point swing between combat units or whatever, that is not enough. But wait a minute, we had that crazy panic. What's the effect? May not force march. Subtract 1 from combat, attacking or defending. Yep, it doesn't slow me down at all, so I was able to get in there. I may be vulnerable, though. Penalty to the die roll. Each pip on the die modifiers is really important. As Lee moves away, exposing Telefiero here, which may have been a mistake, but the Union gets an activation. They're doing core activations with real core activations because they're afraid of getting the double ones and not getting to move everything they want. Instead of piling up on Telefiero, who's fairly strong, and I don't have my little buddy Pope nearby, and he's 5th Corps, he can't really help the 5th Corps, that's part of Potomac. I've decided to try to speed my way along and gather forces up near Bull Run with the 5th Corps. Because that feels like it's where things are kind of coming to a head, as opposed to down here, where I've got a lot of forces. Now, my forces here is almost all of 2nd Corps. There's a little bit there. And some of 9th Corps. I don't know where the rest of the fuckers hiding. Must be up here somewhere. I want to get them moving. Now, they started coming down to deal with Lee and Telefiero, but I think they're going to get away, and so I'm probably not going to want to face them all the way up here. So my plan is probably to try to move up this way if I get an activation with them. Confederates are indeed pushing hard, getting themselves up here. I didn't launch an attack against these disorganized guys. Honestly, they've got enough problems. I would love to get the kill count up a little higher, but it's too risky to hit smaller strength point forces, even if they're smaller because they're disorganized, even because they're disordered or whatever. It was just a +2 on the combat table, not worth it. I could do a core assault, get the General Lee bonus, a few other things. That could come later. I've got a fatigue point there. Conceivably bring more troops in and get better odds, etc. Well, that's kind of iffy. But mainly we're looking at trying to just, cut the Union forces in half and then see if we can get something that we can score up here. Running hard, basically. And this is where the game's kind of cool in terms of moves and counter moves. Part of that's because 5th Corps started drifting away. If I'm no longer having to be there preventing them from being able to sweep up here, well, now I gotta get moving. And now they've got a longer trip heading up this way if they choose to try to collect up with the Union forces over here. They've got a very long trip going up this way, which looks ugly as hell, actually. Street's Corps was able to take out that unit up here and then give some support to Jackson, who finally took this Briscoe station. And that's the first sign of something real happening. The panic's definitely helping. The extra combat bonus, like I said, a shift is a big deal. Plus, the Union slows, Confederate forces all kind of coalescing in one area. I actually have this little brigade here. It doesn't have a nice target, but I feel like I don't need that river line all that much. The only problem is Porter could come slamming up and bottle me up by closing up these. That would be something of a problem, there's no question, but my points are here. So I don't know. I do still have That's just Cav. But I do still have these forces back here that have a long way to go to get anywhere interesting. Yeah, down here. The Union's there, and I may not want to cross, because next turn, fine and dandy, but the turn after is the supply turn. And again, being out of supply sucked. There's really no way to be in supply except being in the Confederate, back zone. Whatever. The turn's almost over here. I gotta remember, I keep forgetting to deal with this. I looked at the panic rules. I don't remember when did McClellan, should he have already come in, is the question. Or is that next turn? And that's what I'm not sure about. Second turn after the panic is when McClellan, etc. comes in. So let's get him on the track over here so we remember. Because essentially we've had our bull run down here, and it's pretty damn ugly. Second bull run. And it really does kind of feel like a battle. You see forces shifting from one combat to the other. It's just some nice action going on. Most of both armies aren't engaged, but that's not that unreasonable, honestly. Bringing everything to bear in one place wasn't all that common. I think we've played out all the units. The Union basically got a lot of actions they could have taken. I'm going to keep Evans here. He's useful. Oh, man. All right. Yeah, we'll take the actions with him. And I don't know where he's going to go. He's going to, try to give support, i.e. put himself in a position. See, him fortifying would be really useful, though, because we're getting cut off here where we might not be able to get away if we need to. But we may end up running, I don't know. We're not going to get in supply ever again. The Confederate Army is busy. Okay, so it doesn't matter we don't need a retreat path. Okay, so I am going to move him. But one thing, before I do that, that I wanted to look on is kind of the pulsing of the movement in this and how it differs from the Lee versus Grant just because of that end of turn die roll. In Lee versus Grant, your most important thing might well be the thing you leave for last. Here, you get more of the feeling of the leader that you're kind of buckling down on and saying, hey, you got to do this. He's going to get moving first, right? Because you don't want him to just end up dragging his feet and doing nothing at all. Now, you can't guarantee how fast he's going to go, but the guy that you push the hardest, he's going to at least try to do something. You may choose not to actually move him. And that kind of works because it's fairly likely you roll a lot of dice in the course of a turn. It's fairly likely you'll get the double ones. And not that unreasonable that you'll get an end of turn. I've probably gotten more of them than I deserve, but given that, you kind of have this, there are leaders who are not going to move who you'd like to move on a fair number of turns. Maybe not that many of them, and I don't mean these guys who I'd love to move, but they're not allowed to. So that's one facet that I really do like that this has added to the system. And I don't know, as always, a lot of, playing fairly heavily. Today was one big hard turn, but playing fairly heavily, I do feel like I get a little bit more grasp of the game, but then it gets hard again each time I even just, sleeping a day overnight and coming back in the morning. It may be difficult for me to figure out what I'm doing. And then some of it, I don't feel like I'm actually making any decisions, really. I feel like I'm just, hey, roll the dice. Hey, where can I move? Where works? Where I'm not really like plotting out ahead of time. Yes, this is where I'm going to go. This is what I want to do. And that's easier for me. I'm much more of an opportunist than I am a strategist, right? And that aspect of it, like this cav being able to move up here and screen these guys, that seemed like a good idea, and it was the only place he could move that made any sense at all when I rolled the dice. Anyway, I'll get Evans moving. I don't think the Union has any real desire. I don't know. Yeah, this guy's really not very useful. And everybody else is pretty much fatigued, or like this guy, he's in an important place. This guy's in a vaguely important place. I don't want to lose that, and him fortified in there, that'll help. Just like I'm staying here, because this kind of prevents these guys from moving forward, although they may try to dart down this way, but then they don't get to burn that railroad station that they want to kill. Picture at the end of August 27th. So the routed units, they're all demoralized. This one actually level 2, it got hit twice. Pope has, what, 1st Corps with Seagull, McDowell's 3rd, 9th is kicking around somewhere, but they may have gotten butts kicked. There's some of the 3rd. What the hell's this? It's got a Confederate demoralization. Not that it matters much, but it was confusing me. Unlike the fatigue markers, I feel like the demoralizations, I don't need to see them quite as much. It's the fatigues that are always on top and that I wish I had multiple colors of. Here's the rest of 3rd, defending the Junction there. Jackson more up here. Although this is Longstreet. Longstreet down here. And then some loose cav, some more of Longstreet down here. I mean, I got part of the 1st Corps kicking here, 2nd Corps and 5th Corps trying to find their way to the battle still. Here's the rest of the 9th. Some of them are up there. 1st pulled up and tightened its position up. So actually this is 2nd Corps still. This looks like a huge stack. It really isn't, and I'll probably consolidate it because I don't really think I need a couple of light, 1-point units or 2-point units kicking around. They don't really hurt, but they also aren't really helping terribly much. And they make the stacks bigger and they kind of annoy me, And it's that versus some tactical flexibility that I could honestly create with by throwing out some equally good substitute units. So there's no real good reason for them there, except that flexibility remains during the action phases. I can't take apart and break up units in the midst of action phases. So I don't know. If this is good, though, I'd have subs all over the place because they give me that little extra flexibility. And they're not enough to take on the biggest units and give you like the flanking bonus. So, but they can help with almost everything else because they're like a couple strength points each, and it's like 5 times instead of half like it was in Lee versus Scrambled. All right, let's send this up. Like I said, 27th of August.